Priya had always believed that depending on someone was the first step toward disappointment. She learned this early in life when her father left and her mother worked 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. So she made a promise to herself. She would never need anyone. She would build her own life with her own hands. By the time she turned 28, she had kept that promise. She ran a small interior design business from her tiny apartment in Mumbai. It wasn't big, but it was hers. Every client she got, every project she completed, every rupee she earned came from her own hard work. She worked 16-hour days sometimes. Her friends said she was crazy. Her mother worried she would burn out. But Priya didn't care. This was her dream, and she was making it real. Then, the building management dropped a bomb on her life. They announced major renovations. Water pipes needed replacing. Electrical work had to be done. Her unit would be unlivable for at least 3 months. 3 months. She couldn't afford a hotel for that long. She couldn't pause her business either. Clients didn't wait for anyone. Her cousin Meera called with a solution. She knew someone with a spare room. A guy named Arjun, who worked from home. The rent would be cheap, since she was basically doing him a favor by filling an empty room. Priya hesitated. Living with a stranger? A male stranger? It went against everything she believed in. But she had no other options. So she said yes. Meera gave her very little information about this Arjun person. He was a music producer. He was quiet. He kept to himself. That sounded fine to Priya. She imagined some shy, nerdy guy with glasses who would stay out of her way. The night she arrived at the apartment, everything she imagined fell apart. Her flight got delayed. Then her cab got stuck in traffic. By the time she reached the building, it was almost 2 in the morning. She dragged 2 heavy suitcases up 3 floors because the elevator was broken. Her arms ached. Her feet hurt. All she wanted was a bed and 8 hours of sleep. She used the key Meera had given her and stepped inside. The apartment was dark, except for a light in the kitchen. She heard the sound of a spoon hitting a bowl. Someone was eating. Priya walked toward the kitchen, ready to introduce herself politely despite her exhaustion. But when she turned the corner, she froze. A man stood by the counter. He was tall, with messy dark hair and sharp features. He wore no shirt, just loose pants that hung low on his hips. Headphones rested around his neck, and he held a bowl of cereal like it was the most normal thing in the world to be eating at 2 in the morning half-dressed. He looked up and saw her. His expression didn't change. No surprise. No warmth. Just a flat, almost annoyed look. "You must be the cousin," he said. Priya felt her exhaustion turn into irritation. She had expected awkwardness. Maybe even shyness. Not this arrogant attitude from someone who couldn't bother to put on a shirt. "You must be the inconvenience," she replied before she could stop herself. His eyebrow went up slightly. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe, or annoyance. She couldn't tell. "Your room is the second door on the left," he said. "Bathroom is shared. Don't touch my equipment in the living room. Don't make noise after midnight." "Don't tell me what to do," Priya shot back. "I'm paying rent here. I'm not a guest." He shrugged and went back to his cereal like she wasn't even there. Priya grabbed her suitcases and marched to her room. She closed the door, harder than necessary. Her heart was beating fast, not from attraction, but from pure annoyance. Who did this guy think he was? She looked around the small room, a single bed, a tiny desk, a window that faced a brick wall. It wasn't much, but it would do. She dropped onto the bed, without even changing her clothes. Through the thin wall, she could hear him moving around. Cabinet doors opening and closing. Water running. Then music started playing softly. Something with deep bass and slow rhythms. She pressed a pillow over her ears. 3 months, she told herself. Just 3 months, She could survive anything for 3 months. But as she lay there in the dark, listening to his music leak through the walls, she had a strange feeling. Like her carefully controlled life was about to spin out of control. She had no idea how right she was. The first week was a battlefield. Priya quickly learned that Arjun was impossible to live with. He had no sense of normal hours. He slept during the day and worked at night. His music filled the apartment at random times. Sometimes soft melodies at 3 in the morning. Sometimes loud beats at noon when she was trying to take client calls. She tried talking to him about it. She knocked on his studio door, which was really just the living room filled with equipment, and asked politely if he could use headphones. He looked at her like she had asked him to stop breathing. "This is how I work," he said simply. "I need to hear how the music fills a space. And I need to hear my clients," she replied, "without your drums in the background." He shrugged. "Use the bedroom for calls." "The bedroom shares a wall with your studio." Another shrug. "Not my problem." Priya wanted to scream. Instead, she started leaving passive-aggressive notes on the refrigerator. "Please keep music below earthquake levels after 10 p.m. The next day, she found a note from him. "Please stop rearranging my cables. They have a system." She hadn't even realized she'd been moving his things. It was a habit. When she saw mess, she fixed it. His cables looked like a tangled disaster to her. But apparently, he knew exactly where each one went. The notes continued. She complained about his dishes in the sink. He complained about her hair products taking over the bathroom. She told him to stop leaving shoes in the hallway. He told her to stop slamming doors. They barely spoke face to face. When they crossed paths in the kitchen or hallway, they exchanged cold nods and nothing more. It was like living with an enemy. Then came the storm. It started in the evening. Dark clouds rolled in fast, and within an hour, rain was pounding against the windows like it wanted to break through. Lightning lit up the sky every few seconds. Priya was working on her laptop when the power went out. Everything went dark. She heard Arjun curse from the living room. His equipment had probably shut down in the middle of something important. She fumbled around for her phone and turned on the flashlight. The apartment looked strange in the small beam of light. Shadows everywhere. The rain sounded even louder in the darkness. She found some candles in the kitchen drawer and lit them. The soft glow made things feel a little less scary. Arjun emerged from his studio, looking frustrated. He saw the candles and raised an eyebrow, but didn't say anything. He just sat down on the couch and stared at nothing. Priya sat on the other end of the couch. Far from him, but still, it felt strange to be sharing space like this. Usually, they avoided each other completely. "How long do you think it will last?" she asked finally. "No idea. Could be hours." Silence again. Just the sound of rain and thunder. "I lost 3 hours of work," he said suddenly. "Didn't save the file. My own fault." Priya looked at him. This was the first time he'd admitted to making a mistake about anything. "That's rough," she said. "I'm sorry." He glanced at her, surprised by the genuine sympathy in her voice. "What about you? Did you lose work?" "No. I was just answering emails. Nothing important." More silence. But this time, it felt different. Less hostile. "My career is failing," Arjun said quietly, almost to himself. "I haven't had a real project in 6 months. Just small jobs that barely pay rent. I thought I'd be further along by now." Priya didn't know what to say. She understood that feeling all too well. "I might lose my biggest client next week," she found herself admitting. "They're unhappy with my last 2 proposals. If they leave, I don't know how I'll pay my bills." He looked at her then. Really looked at her. Not with annoyance or indifference. With understanding. "It's terrifying, isn't it?" he said. "Building something from nothing, and watching it almost slip away." "Yes," she whispered. It is. They talked through the night. About their dreams and their fears. About the people who doubted them. About the loneliness of chasing goals that nobody else understood. The candles burned low. The storm continued outside. But inside that small living room, something changed. When the power came back 12 hours later, they both blinked in the sudden brightness. The spell was broken. They went back to their separate corners of the apartment. But things were different after that night. Priya noticed Arjun started wearing headphones during his late sessions. She stopped rearranging his cables. The notes on the refrigerator became less angry. Saved you some coffee and package came for you. Left it on the table. And late one night, Priya heard him playing something new through the wall. Something soft and beautiful and sad. Without thinking, she pressed her hand against the wall. The music stopped. Like he knew she was there. Like he felt her listening. Neither of them mentioned it the next morning. The weeks that followed were confusing for both of them. On the surface, nothing had really changed. Priya still worked her long hours. Arjun still made music at odd times. They still lived separate lives under the same roof. But there was something different in the air now. Something neither of them wanted to name. Their arguments didn't feel the same anymore. Before, they would snap at each other and walk away angry. Now, their arguments ended differently. They would be standing in the kitchen, voices raised about something small like who finished the milk, and suddenly they would realize how close they were standing. Close enough to feel each other's breath. Close enough to notice things they had been trying to ignore. Priya noticed the way his jaw tightened when he was frustrated. The way his eyes got darker when he looked at her for too long. She noticed, and then she made herself look away. Arjun noticed how her voice got softer when she wasn't fighting. How she bit her lip when she was thinking. How beautiful she looked in the morning light when she thought nobody was watching. They both noticed. And they both pretended they didn't. The routines of the apartment shifted in small ways. Arjun started making coffee for 2 in the mornings without being asked. Priya started cooking dinner for both of them, instead of eating alone in her room. They didn't talk about these changes, they just let them happen. But the tension kept building. Every accidental touch in the narrow hallway. Every moment. When their eyes met across the room. Every time they heard each other through the thin walls at night. It was all building towards something. And they both knew it. The night everything broke open started like any other day. Priya had a huge presentation scheduled, her biggest potential client yet. A wealthy businessman who wanted to redesign his entire penthouse. If she got this project, it would change everything for her business. She had worked on the proposal for weeks. Every detail was perfect. She was ready. But nothing went the way she planned. The businessman was rude from the start. He interrupted her presentation. He laughed at her ideas. He brought in other designers to compare her work in front of everyone. And then, in a room full of people, he told her that her designs were amateur and that she had wasted his time. She held herself together through the whole meeting. She smiled politely. She thanked him for his time. She walked out of that building with her head high. But the moment she got in the cab, she started shaking. All those weeks of work, all her hopes, gone in one humiliating hour. She came home expecting an empty apartment. Arjun usually went out on Thursday nights to meet other music producers. She wanted to be alone. She wanted to cry without anyone seeing. But when she opened the door, he was there. Sitting on the couch with his laptop. He looked up when she walked in, and whatever he was about to say died on his lips. "What happened?" he asked. She tried to answer. She tried to say that she was fine, that nothing was wrong, that she just needed some sleep. But no words came out. Her face crumbled instead. All the pain she had been holding back rushed to the surface. Arjun stood up slowly. He didn't ask more questions. He didn't try to fix anything with words. He just walked over to her and opened his arms. Priya fell into them. She cried against his chest while he held her. His arms were strong and warm around her. He smelled like coffee and something else. Something that was just him. He didn't say anything. He just held her and let her break apart. Minutes passed, maybe hours. She lost track of time. Eventually, her tears stopped. She became aware of how close they were, how intimate this moment was. Embarrassment flooded through her. She pulled back quickly, wiping her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't know what happened. I'm fine. I should just go to my room." She started to turn away, but Arjun caught her hand. His grip was gentle but firm. "Stay," he said quietly. She looked at him. His eyes held no judgment, no pity, just a simple request. She stayed. They sat on his bed because the couch felt too exposed. He asked what happened, and she told him everything. About the cruel businessman. About her fears of failing. About how she had built her whole identity around being strong and independent, and now she didn't feel strong at all. He listened without interrupting. And then, he started talking too. About his own failures. About the record label that had promised him a deal, and then ghosted him. About his family who didn't understand why he couldn't just get a normal job. About how lonely this path had been. They talked until the sky outside started getting lighter. The bed creaked every time one of them shifted position. Such a small sound. But in the quiet of that room, it felt like something more. Like each creak was marking a moment. A movement toward something they couldn't take back. By the time the sun rose, they were both exhausted. But something between them had changed forever. The wall they had carefully built was gone. Priya finally stood up to leave. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." He nodded. And in his eyes, she saw the same confusion she felt. The same fear. And something else underneath it all. Something that looked a lot like hope. After that night, Priya did what she always did when feelings got too big. She ran. Not physically. She didn't pack her bags and leave. But she might as well have. She buried herself in work. She woke up early and left the apartment before Arjun was awake. She came back late when he was locked in his studio. She answered his texts with one-word replies. She built a new wall faster than he had torn the old one down. Arjun did the same thing in his own way. He disappeared into his music. Days went by when she didn't see him at all. She would hear him through the walls, working on something intense. The beats were angry now. Frustrated. Like he was putting all his confusion into the sound. The apartment that had started feeling like home now felt like a minefield. Every shared space was dangerous. The kitchen, the hallway, the bathroom. They moved around each other like ghosts, careful never to be in the same room for too long. But the problem with small apartments is that you can't hide forever. One evening, Priya came home earlier than usual. Her meeting got cancelled. She figured she would have the place to herself for a few hours. She could take a long shower, cook a real meal, pretend everything was normal. But Arjun was in the kitchen when she walked in. He was cooking something. The smell of spices filled the air. He looked up when he heard her. And for a moment, neither of them moved. "You're home early," he said. "Meeting got cancelled. I made too much food. You should eat." It was a peace offering. She knew that. She should have accepted it gracefully. But something in her was still running. Still scared. "I'm not hungry," she lied. His expression flickered. Hurt, maybe. Or frustration. She couldn't tell. "Fine," he said, turning back to the stove. She went to her room and closed the door. But she didn't feel relief. She felt awful. He had been nothing but kind to her, and she was treating him like a stranger. Like an enemy. Like someone she needed to protect herself from. The truth was, she did need to protect herself. Because what she felt for him was dangerous. It threatened everything she had built. Her independence, her control, her carefully planned life. He made her feel things she had promised herself she would never feel. Days passed. The tension grew thicker. The silences grew longer, and the accidental moments grew more frequent. They would reach for the same mug, their hands would touch, and electricity would shoot through both of them. They would pass in the hallway. Their bodies would brush against each other in the narrow space. They would catch each other staring and look away too quickly. It was torture. Beautiful, terrible torture. The breaking point came over something stupid. Priya noticed they were out of groceries. She left a note asking Arjun to pick some up since she had back-to-back meetings. He forgot. When she came home tired and hungry and found nothing in the refrigerator, something inside her snapped. She marched to his studio and threw open the door. "You had one thing to do," she said. "One simple thing." He pulled off his headphones, looking confused for a second before he remembered. "I forgot. I'm sorry. I'll go now. 5. I'll go now. I'll sieve. 5. I'll sieve. I'll sieve. 5. It's 10 at night. The shops are closed. Then I'll order something for delivery." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point, Priya?" His voice rose to match hers. "What do you actually want from me? Because you won't talk to me. You won't look at me. You act like I did something wrong when all I did was be there for you. You didn't do anything wrong. Then why are you punishing me?" "I'm not punishing you." "Then what is this?" He gestured at the space between them. "What are we doing? One night we share everything, and then you disappear? You make me feel like I'm crazy for thinking that night meant something. It didn't mean anything." The lie hung in the air between them. They both knew it was a lie. His eyes searched hers, looking for the truth she was trying so hard to hide. "Say that again," he said quietly. "Look me in the eyes, and say it meant nothing." She opened her mouth. The words were right there. Simple words that would put everything back in its proper place. That would rebuild all the walls. That would keep her safe. But she couldn't say them, because he was right there. So close, looking at her with all that intensity. And she was so tired of fighting. So tired of pretending. So tired of being afraid. He kissed her before she could think. Or maybe she kissed him. She wasn't sure who moved first. It didn't matter. What mattered was that his lips were on hers, and her hands were in his hair, and they were finally doing what they had both been wanting to do for weeks. The kiss was not gentle. It held all the frustration and longing and confusion they had been carrying. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. "Tell me to stop," he whispered against her lips. "Tell me this is a mistake, and I'll walk away." She should have said yes. Every logical part of her brain screamed at her to stop this before it went further. To protect herself. To stay in control. Instead, she pulled him closer. That night, they stopped fighting what was between them. His old bed creaked under their weight, and neither of them cared. They let go of control completely. All the tension, all the denial, all the fear transformed into something else entirely. Something neither of them could stop anymore. When morning came, Priya woke up first. Sunlight streamed through the window. Arjun was still sleeping beside her. He looked peaceful. Younger somehow. The hard edges of his face softened in sleep. Reality hit her like cold water. She had done the one thing she swore she would never do. She had let someone in. She had lost control. And in 6 weeks, she was supposed to leave. Her apartment would be ready. Her temporary life here would end. What had she done? She got up quietly, gathered her clothes, and left without waking him. She had a meeting in 2 hours. She needed to shower. She needed to think. But thinking didn't help. Nothing helped. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And she had no idea what came next. The final weeks of the renovation flew by faster than Priya expected. She got the email on a Monday morning. Her apartment was ready. The repairs were complete. She could move back whenever she wanted. The news should have made her happy. This was what she had been waiting for. Her own space, her own life, back to normal. But the email sat unopened for 3 days before she finally read it. Things with Arjun had gotten strange since that night. Not bad exactly. Just uncertain. They were careful around each other now. Polite. Like two people who had shared something huge and didn't know what to do with it. He didn't bring up the future. Neither did she. They existed in this strange middle ground where they ate dinner together and watched movies together and sometimes fell asleep on the same couch. But they never talked about what they were or what would happen when she left. Priya started packing slowly. A few things each day. Her suitcases sat open in her room, filling up bit by bit. Every item she packed felt like a small goodbye. Arjun noticed. Of course he noticed. He saw the suitcases. He heard her on the phone with the building manager. He watched her sort through her belongings. But he didn't say anything. He just retreated into cold politeness. "Do you need boxes?" he asked one evening. His voice was flat, empty. "No, I don't have that much stuff." "Right. Okay." That was all. No fight. No conversation. Just acceptance. Priya told herself this was better. Clean and simple. No messy emotions. No difficult conversations. She would leave, and they would both move on with their lives. It was the mature thing to do. But at night, lying in her bed alone, she felt anything but mature. She felt like a coward. Her last night in the apartment arrived before she was ready. Everything was packed. Her suitcases stood by the door. The room that had become hers looked empty and cold again. She sat on the bare mattress and looked around at the walls that had heard her cry. The window that had let in the morning light. The thin barrier between her room and his. Through that wall, she heard nothing. No music. No movement. Just silence. She thought about her own apartment across the city. It would be exactly as she left it. Clean. Organized. Empty. She had been so proud of that space. Her achievement. Her independence. But now the thought of going back there made her feel hollow. She thought about the thunderstorm. How they had talked through the night. How she had seen the real Arjun. For the first time. She thought about the night she came home broken. How he had opened his arms without hesitation. How safe she had felt. She thought about all the mornings he made her coffee. All the dinners they shared. All the small moments that had built into something bigger than either of them planned. And she thought about the night they stopped fighting it. The way he looked at her. The way she felt in his arms. Like she had finally found something she didn't know she was looking for. She stood up suddenly. Her feet carried her to his door. Her hand knocked before her brain could talk her out of it. The door opened. Arjun stood there looking as wrecked as she felt. His eyes were red. His hair was a mess. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I thought you were already gone," he said. "I leave in the morning." "Right." Silence. Heavy and painful. "I was going to let you go," he admitted. His voice cracked slightly. "Because that's what you seem to want. You packed your bags. You made your plans. I figured I had my answer. Priya felt tears building in her eyes. "I was wrong," she said. "I was scared. I'm still scared. My whole life, I've been so afraid of depending on anyone, of letting someone have the power to hurt me. So I built all these walls. And then you came along and knocked every single one of them down." He stepped closer. "Priya. I don't know how to do this," she continued, the words pouring out now. "I don't know how to be with someone. I don't know how to let go of control. But I know that going back to my empty apartment and pretending the last 3 months didn't happen would be the biggest mistake of my life." "What are you saying?" She took a deep breath. I'm saying I don't want to leave. I'm saying that this thing between us, whatever it is, scares me more than anything. But losing it scares me more. For a moment, he just stared at her. Then something shifted in his expression. The distance melted away. The walls came down. He pulled her into the room and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. I've been falling for you since the night of the storm, he whispered into her hair. Maybe even before that. When you walked in at 2 a.m. and called me an inconvenience, nobody had ever talked to me like that. You were so fierce, so real. She laughed through her tears. I thought you were the most arrogant person I'd ever met. I was. I'm still working on that. They held each other in the darkness. The old bed creaked softly as they sat down together. But this time, the sound didn't mean desperation or confusion. It meant coming home. 3 years later, they bought a place of their own. A small apartment with a proper studio for Arjun and an office for Priya. Her business had grown. His music had finally found its audience. They had built something together that neither could have built alone. They got a new bed, one that didn't make a sound, but sometimes, late at night, they would laugh about replacing it with something noisier, something that creaked, something that would remind them of the apartment where two strangers became something more. Some love stories start with romance and flowers. Theirs started with annoyance, thin walls, and a bed that refused to stay quiet. And honestly, neither of them would have it any other way.